very good morning and welcome to Talking Point. Keaton Shaw alongside Sean Michael Small this morning. It's a beautiful day here in Trinidad and Tobago, and we're pleased once more to have you alongside us as we continue the discussions this morning. A lot to get into with the state of things here in TNT. It's just developments upon developments of issues. Nothing new, nothing that we just suddenly surprised us like a jack in the box. No, this is just developments to ongoing issues that are plaguing society. Alongside me this morning, as per usual, is my co-host and colleague, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Keaton. And it's a beautiful day. It's an unfortunate day. It's strange that I find these days I'm more worried and more concerned than, say, this time last year, when we had all of the uncertainty of a situation that I'm not sure if really there was anything quite like it in human history. Similar, yes, Spanish flu, the Black Plague, cholera epidemics, granted. But right now, I feel for us especially, these days, I'm a bit more uneasy, there's a bit more uncertainty. So I myself am still very much worried, despite the fact that, you know, technically one obstacle we finally have it in our rearview mirror. Only we're just now seeing like a multitude of them right in front of us.
What obstacle is that? Well,
technically speaking, COVID, it's not even necessarily the rearview mirror. Now it sounds like, you know, part two the barricade might be being built right in front of us, and we might have to jump over that as well with a new variant, making our local health officials a bit concerned. But so far, it's not like what it was last year. Meanwhile, we just have a lot of local problems, and none of them have really seemed to be resolved. When you think about it, none of the issues that we've spoken about for the last 6 months to a year have been resolved.
In this 1 year on this program, what has been resolved? It's been over 1 year, but jumping a bit forward, Sean, I'd like to ask you a trivial question this morning.
Oh, do tell.
Yes. It's in two parts. First part is, where is the Minister of Agriculture, Kazim Hussain? Do you know by any chance?
That is a very good question, because I don't think he has said, I could be wrong, but I don't think he has said anything publicly since he was appointed to his new post.
He had a seed distribution drive, but that was really it. Where's the Minister of Trade and Industry?
I think that's the million-dollar question there, because she reported to us about, you know, a lot of commentary with regards to the monitoring. They're monitoring things. There was a lot of monitoring. They were proactively monitoring. I think what happens is they realize that with how government bureaucracies work, they had to set up a team to monitor the monitors to make sure that the first monitoring was being done in an efficient manner, to ensure that the results of the first monitoring would have been sufficient enough, but just in case they had secondary monitoring. Be that as it may, we haven't gotten anything since we were told that they were looking at the problem. And that's nice.
Well,
meanwhile, the problem has continued to expand.
About 2.5 to 3 weeks ago, in the humble walls of the Parliament during Senate sitting, we heard from the Minister of Trade and Industry as it relates to food inflation and food prices. She indicated that in 2 weeks' time, again, this is 2.5 to 3 weeks ago, that we would be hearing from her with ideas that the government are looking at least exploring, to help alleviate the situation here in Trinidad and Tobago. It's been 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks later. I think it was exactly 3 weeks ago, because today's Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm still confused. Is it that she forgot the date? Did she forget the timeline? Or did she forget the people of Trinidad and Tobago? Which one is it? Because people woke up on Sunday to learn that the prices of foods, again, once more, basic foods that are actually farmed and produced here in Trinidad and Tobago, have gone up. Only for that to once more be raised, I think it was on Tuesday. Food in Trinidad and Tobago, well, food that we are producing, has gone up by great amounts. And the demand is there. There's great demand, little supply. For example, sweet peppers. I didn't even realize how difficult it is to get sweet peppers now. And sweet peppers are now $20 a pound. And that's wholesale. So imagine if you go to buy it retail, like one supermarket giant in Trinidad and Tobago having to apologize to the public yesterday
Yes.
for charging $71.34 for a pound of melon gin.
They said it was a mistake. I believe it was a mistake. Unless, of course, you could show me pictures of other outlets, of other instances where that was the price for the melon gin. But I think, to me, one of the biggest things was because she started speaking with regards to the price of flour and the staples, right? Yes, other agricultural products and food products were on the radar, but this was when the price of flour, the reports about it going up for the second or third time within the last couple of months, more or less hit the country. And she said within a couple of days, she would release information with regards to the various supermarkets or retail outlets and their prices to try to guide consumers away from price gouging. I don't know if it was because politically the supermarket said, hey, we're not price gouging. Or maybe I believe that the head of the supermarket association said his members, so he limited it to his members who he was defending, were not price gouging. But as far as I'm aware, I do not think that that initiative, which granted, to be fair, it might have been redundant as the prices continue to go up regularly. That information might have to change on a week-to-week basis. It might actually be impractical to gather all of it and then send people out to gather all of it again. So I understand. But at the very least, she should have made the attempt to keep the country engaged with regards to whatever various measures and initiatives, even if they bust. Let it fail because we tried and failed, not because we didn't even make an attempt.
So, first of all, if I know that supermarket chain well, and trust me, I know them well, I don't think it was a mistake. But I think because of the public outcry, they didn't have a choice. And that's just an opinion, by the way. I don't think it was a mistake.
I
really do not think it was a mistake.
Now,
Right?
really,
But anyway, let's not get too caught up in that.
$70 for a melon gin.
$71.34 for a pound.
I
yeah.
don't.
I wouldn't be entirely surprised. As I said, my experience with that particular chain of supermarkets, trust me, I've looked for alternatives simply because of it's ridiculous. But
No,
anyway.
I understand that, but what businessman, manager, I mean, unless you're just bad at your job, which means that you should go up for the next election, you probably have a fair chance.
Sure.
But what businessman...
Don't encourage that nonsense, please.
Sorry,
That's the exact reason why we're in that situation right now. But you're absolutely right. You should keep the country engaged. I do not want to hear you in the Senate just standing up and responding to questions posed by the opposition. I want you engaging with the same people that put you in that position. I want you telling us what it is that y'all are doing rather than hearing some depressed or sad story or some thesis. It sounds as though it was your thesis for your master's degree in relation to the definition of inflation and types of inflation. I don't want to hear that nonsense. I'm tired of being educated by the ministers. I want to see some sort of action which ensures that tomorrow I can actually be able to afford a meal. It may not be a complete meal, it may not be a balanced meal, but at least it will be filling and nutritious enough to give me energy to see what's going next.
I think part of the problem is, because I know people who at the end of the day, having a balanced meal was already a problem, right? So to think that there's sections of the population that just cannot necessarily cope with anymore. Farmers and all are now complaining about the price of food. You would think that at the very least, okay, they will make the money back, but no, it's not tenable for them. And I think this comes back to the fact that the government had challenges, never really managed the expectations of the population. And now we are in a situation where, remember, we were talking about subsidies and what should be cut and what should not be cut, and people were complaining about the possibility of these things being removed. And I understand that because they would compound. But the flip side is this. Government revenue is finite. And they're not necessarily revealing to us how finite it is. So to say that they have the capacity to do any sort of initiative that's going to cost any significant amount of money, and most of them will probably require a good deal of resources if they want to try to impact the cost of food, because it's an uphill battle. When it's global inflation, you trying to insulate your country is an uphill battle. It's not going to be cheap. So already, we're caught without really much leeway of what we could do. The government is not necessarily, I would agree, managing what little we could do very well, or at least not giving us the confidence that they're doing all they could do. That's a communication problem. But I think this comes back to people need to understand why it is that there are some economists that have an issue with transfer and subsidies, that have an issue with certain programs, particularly when you can argue they're not managed effectively or efficiently.
So to add to this entire situation, one of the aspects of it has been the early onset of what we call the rainy season here in Trinidad and Tobago, and its effect on farming with flooding taking place mostly in central and southern parts of Trinidad and Tobago. That's where we've seen the most effects of the rains. Also, NAMDEVCO have indicated that the price of fertilizers and insecticides have gone up by over 200%. So that's something to also consider. So these are factors that could be helped, and that's the thing. Whilst I applaud the Minister of Agriculture for taking part in seed distribution drives, because people should be now involved in more home gardens, I don't think they have a choice but to be. It'll be a lot cheaper to pick a pile of bandania within your backyard rather than go to a particular chain of supermarket and pay over $5 for a bundle if you're so lucky to even get it at that price. But at the end of the day, it's just a ridiculous situation now where this silence is becoming so frustrating. Because you're adding that now with the situation, not only with the economy, but the mere fact that we seem to have forgotten other issues. Again, I don't want to get too caught up. It's like the issue surrounding the Attorney General has been forgotten. Mm-hmm. The issue relating to national security this morning, I'm not entirely sure. Fitzgerald Hines came out with a press conference 2 days ago, absolute nonsense on his part. Whatever, that man is happy in his position, doing absolutely nothing. This is a situation now which is impacting families. You said crime is like a new health crisis. Well, we will have a health crisis on our hands if people cannot afford to eat food soon. And the issue is that it's locally produced. This is not even imported products. If the government was serious about curbing our foreign exchange expenditures, such as not allowing the unnecessary expansion of these businesses which are importing everything from straws to napkins, and I don't know how they're accessing foreign exchange or exactly where they're getting it to expand, because for each franchise you have to pay, then we will have more foreign exchange at which we can actually allow certain measures such as cutting expenses on fertilizers, on insecticides, because not everything is produced in Trinidad.
I think we're now moving past the point where our foreign exchange issues could really be the root cause and alleviate. We had to take a break. I'll just say this. We are accustomed to social programs. That's what people vote for. That's giving a man a fish. We don't teach a man how to fish to feed him for a lifetime in this country. And that's now we're seeing the fallout of those sorts of policies dominating our elections. We have to take a break. When we come back, we'll go on to another issue that might be not getting enough attention that it deserves. Stay tuned. This is Talking Point on WSN, your content capital.
Welcome to the 53rd General Assembly of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union from August 15th to 17th at the Magdalena Grand Beach and Golf Resort in beautiful Tobago. This year's theme, Media and Information Literacy. Tobago is a smaller sister in the twin island republic of Trinidad and Tobago, nestled in the heart of the Southern Caribbean. Enjoy 116 square miles of historical sites and award-winning eco-friendly land and marine spaces, including the magical Nylon Pool. And you're just a ferry away from a Trinidad adventure. Our warm hospitality, rich cuisine, and unique traditions will inspire you to extend your stay. Tranquil Tobago is where the Caribbean connects for the 53rd CBU Assembly. To register and enjoy discounts on Caribbean airline flights, visit www.caribbroadcastunion.org. Come and experience Beyond Ordinary.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen, and I wanted to go into another topic. We're waiting for our guest to arrive in the Zoom. So, Keaton, I know, of course, that the SAA results, it's been a bit of a shock, I guess you could say. I'm not sure if anybody necessarily predicted it would be quite as bad as it was, because we didn't necessarily have the indicators. We knew that there would be some children who would do horribly, based on how online classes worked. It worked for some teachers, it worked for some students, it didn't work for others. Now the Minister of Education is bringing up questions about with regards to the ongoing or the long-term employment prospects for these students, the long-term prospects generally for the country because of this deficit. I wonder, do you think she's also hedging her bets with regards to secondary school students who might also end up in this sort of situation? Because I'm not entirely sure if we could afford so many students having to be put back into the system effectively. Right. This is not like half of the class repeating. This is almost the whole class repeating.
So first of all, when you say students did horribly, let me just put it out there right now that, again, I cannot blame students entirely for the results that they would have received. I can't. Given what we would experience over the last 2 years. It's very difficult. And I've been in that position before. You've been in that position before. What is so ironic?
I don't know, like this. I don't know if...
No, what I'm talking about just writing the exam and the pressures associated with the exam without any extraordinary circumstances such as COVID-19. To me, listen, first of all, I like Minister Nyan Gatsby-Oli. I honestly think she's one of the better ministers. I enjoy hearing her talk, and many a times I agree with what she's stating. However, what I'm hearing from the minister now, if I'm being honest, it is so unfortunate because it comes as though it's just the minister trying again. You now want to speak about the realities and the stresses associated with the SAA, because we've had consultations about SAA going on since SAA was created. This government has had 2 consultations. I think they were in the process of setting up another one. Consultation after consultation, speaking about SAA all the time. And then you want to say, well, it's because of the online classes. But the situation was never helped. Students struggled to get devices, struggled to get internet access, and even more so, there was no thinking on the part of the Ministry of Education at the time. No other measures that they explored or looked at rather than we're pushing online classes. So honestly, Minister, to me, I hear you, but it's just really an excuse. It seems as though just to cover up the shortfalls of the Ministry of Education.
So we are joined, I believe, by our guest, hopefully as he's setting up. He is, of course, WSN's resident psychologist, as well as the host of WSN Psyched, Mr. Sule Joseph. Sule, good morning, sir.
Good morning, guys. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Thanks for having me.
So
at the end of it.
Time is against us. Let's just go straight to this. First of all, yes, I understand that there might be a lot of disappointment with the results now, but I wanted to get into the long-term psychological effects for these students. Now, we don't know with regards to the secondary school test results what that will be like. But for at least the SCA students now having to go through their careers with this sort of SCA results, which I think is unprecedented, will that impact their future? Will that impact their self-image?
A lot are wrapped up in that question. Quickly, the exam, I think you're asking the wrong question, because the exam in itself does that. The issues with self-concept, self-esteem, just by itself, the SEA exam, currently structured as it is, does that. It creates a divide. It gives a sense of better than versus less than, and so on. If you remember what the junior sec system was like, and so on. Mm-hmm. The SEA exam by itself does that. It is an archaic, barbaric, almost barbaric system that channels our children or streamlines our children, and it does not do a particularly excellent job of that, and causes long-term psychological, perhaps, repercussions. So the long and short answer is yes, this set of results probably can have a major impact upon children's self-esteem and so on, but that doesn't stray from the norm. That's what SEA does in general anyway. We just have now an exaggerated version of it.
So then, if this is an exaggerated version, because I am tired and fed up of hearing consultation after consultation, where we're looking to determine whether or not SEA is what we want to go forward with, or if we want to look at alternatives, ways of testing students before entering secondary schools. If that is the case, you think that this situation will be taken more seriously now, or do you think it's going to be dragged on and delayed? Because we've heard of mental health associated with the SEA, the stresses, and this is the normal thing. Yeah. But it seems as though the stresses associated with SEA affect children, and we're not taking that on very much.
Well, I'm not certain what specifically the question is here, but I would say this to add to your statement, which is essentially we have recognized the fallout, and what we've chosen to do is a patch. We have chosen to patch the issue with these camps that the Ministry of Education will be rolling out for the July-August period, 4 weeks. So think about this. You have somebody who may have had all of this psychological abuse preparing for an exam that will determine their life at such a tender age, without 2.5 years or so of formal schooling or traditional schooling, and then you wrote the exam in a traditional manner. And of course, now we are all very much surprised that results are terrible, or results have been so exaggerated and so, right? We're very much surprised, because who could have seen this coming? And how are we going to improve that or fix that or help work on the issues that these children, the psychological issues that these children may have? Give them 4 weeks of remedial work with some semblance of some psychological support. And of course, that will rectify the problem for September. So a plaster, essentially.
Well, I'm truly sorry if I didn't word my question clearly enough there, my friend. It was in relation to your opinions on the consultations. But these remedial classes over the vacation, I mean, again, that in itself will have psychological effects for students entering the secondary school system, where it's another issue that we have to explore, where they may actually be picked on, if we like to term it that way, because, hey, listen, you had to go to remedial classes.
Well, I don't know. You have a young face, so I'm not sure if you would be familiar with what would have gone on back in the day. But there used to be, for those viewers who have some age, they would remember that you used to get teased in school, and people used to tell you went to school in August. You went to school in August, and recess was your favorite subject, right? And now we have an actual situation where you have children who going to school in August. Of course, there's going to be fallout from that. Of course, people are going to be labeled and stigmatized and all of these type of issues. Now, does that mean that the program should not occur? No, because within this poor structured concept is some good ideas, right? There are some good ideas. At least one of the basic premises would be that this presents a very unique opportunity to assess these students and see if they do indeed have psychological issues, and see where their learning shortages may be, if it is content related, if they just don't have the content, or if they have some kind of learning disability or issue and so on. And that can help prepare a special type of program in September. But is that what we're doing? Take a wild guess. No, it is not. We are trying to place a rapid bandage on a gaping wound.
Well, Sule, you said something about the system being specialized, and I feel as though our education system seems to be really a one-size-fits-all system, where there's emphasis on academics, specific subjects in academia for our kids. It goes from primary school straight up into secondary school, and then we unleash them to tertiary education and or the working world. And I wonder, really and truly, is this now just another sign of the poor development prospects or development of our students? And this just exacerbates some of the issues, what we've seen with GATE, exposing the wound a bit more for us to see?
Well, that is less a psychological question and more an education process type question, which is not necessarily my field, right? But of course, I have my opinions and views on it. And I would agree with you. I would agree that this has shown a gaping hole in the process, an issue that continues to exist in relation to what I would describe as an education system that is not upkeeping with the times. When we look at what originally the education system in the Caribbean region was designed to do, it was designed to keep the slaves passive and create a workforce. And to this day, the education system continues to do that, to create a workforce and to keep certain persons passive. Do we create critical thinkers? Do we create persons who are innovative and so on? And the answer to that, quite simply, is no. We don't have a lot of critical thinkers. We don't push innovation and creativity and so on. What we want is regurgitative thinkers, which is a major issue that we have in Trinidad. How do we move forward as a population if we have a system that is geared and continue to be designed to create an enslaved, regurgitative thinking people? I don't know the answer to that. And this camp that we've decided to do is just a plaster to continue to maintain that said system.
Well, Sule, listen, I want to thank you this morning for coming on the program. I know it was short and sweet, but amidst all my rambles, at least, because my co-host said it best, really, and you put it forward in terms of the weak structure that is there. There are some good ideas. It's just a very weak structure, and it seems as though SCA has been designed and continues to be designed to only push out a workforce, to only keep people passing, nothing more than that. So, very good points there, Sule, and thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Thanks very much for having me. And I hope you're encouraging the rest to tune into my program.
I'll try my best too, Sule. I'll try my very best too. I'm very busy schedule
Sule,
today.
you know, I watch every week, right? But that's besides the point. Tune in, folks, every Thursday, 11 a.m. on WSN for Psych. Some very important discussions had on that show with regards to the psychological breakdown of our society.
Keep well, Sule. Good seeing you.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys. Have a blessed one.
Take care. Well, the conversation about the essay will not end here, especially considering the remedial classes that are taking place over the summer. But again, very, very good points this morning in relation to how the system is designed. Very weak infrastructure, very weak design, but some good ideas. So I guess there's the positives with the negatives. But that's TNT for you right there. So let's take a break now on the program, and when we return, we get into some other serious matters. All the matters we're discussing this morning are critical. We'll continue discussions after this.
Ocho. 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 Ocho.
Organic Ocho candy. What's inside counts.
As I run through the day, there's one thing that inspiration to lead, to make new memories, and nutrition to grow. My kiss enriched bread, the best taste that I know. Fill your day with love, we deliver the best for you. All across the nation, to make your moments feel new. Fill your day with love, we bake the best bread for you. A taste of inspiration, to make those dreams come true.
Baked fresh for you every day and delivered nationwide. Kiss Enriched Bread.
Fill your day with love.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andre.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Matters of national security, some topic of which we have explored tirelessly on this program, and we will continue to explore, regardless of whether or not you may think that we're exhausting the topic now. Every day when you wake up and there's another killing, another robbery, another kidnapping, a child missing, ladies and gentlemen, are we really exhausting the topic? Let us not grow numb to this situation. Sean, in all fairness to Fitzgerald Hines, as much as I've said a lot about him, he has had a press conference last week and he held one this week. He spoke utter rubbish, but nevertheless, he made himself available.
He did, which was, ironically, you could say one of the few times that he made himself available. And he made himself available for questions, but then the press conference he did last week, not the most recent one, he more or less, he only answered one question, and he spent 14 minutes answering the one question he answered. He left it up to then Commissioner Jacobs to respond for the majority of the press conference, which was a question and answer session for the most part. So to say that he makes himself available, I am not entirely sure on a practical level how true that is. But I mean, I guess we should introduce our guest at this point to speak on the matter, because we, the opposition has been making some calls, and in this case, I do believe I have a hard time disagreeing with some of what they have to say, and I think it's something that at the very least we should discuss and in a serious matter. And we have with us Opposition Senator Damian Lyda, who was one of the main speakers at the past UNC's Monday Night Forum, where calls for the current Prime Minister, as well as the Minister of National Security, and their ineptitude over the situation, more or less, Senator Lyda led the charge there. Good morning, Senator Lyda.
Good morning, guys. Good morning, Sean. Good morning to you, and how are you guys this morning?
We're doing well. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing as best as I can do.
Well, I wonder if you're still singing that song that your grandmother taught you when you were growing up.
Oh, no, wait. Let's not spoil it for the viewers who haven't seen it.
Let me tell you, it's not that I'm singing it, it's that it keeps hitting me in my head. Every time I see something happen in this country, it keeps hitting me in my head, right? The reminder of my grandmother's song. But as I say, I don't want to spoil it. But I'm okay. But good morning to all the listeners on your program this morning as well, too. Must recognize your listeners. Thank you for having me this morning.
So let's go with the first clip so that those who did not see it will understand. Well, I guess you could say the passion of Senator Lyda with regards to the unfortunate music that keeps unfortunately coming up in his brain when he sees what's going on in the country. Let's take a look at the first clip.
With more than 100,000 persons jobless and many thousands more hopeless, It could only be Satan through this government, standing in our path, inflicting pain on the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. As a nation, people are starting to wake up. They are starting to have their voices heard, not just the opposition. Across the nation, they come together, and it is as though they are saying to Keith Rowley the words that my grandmother sang to me: "Move, Satan, move, let we pass." What he said? "Move, Satan, move, let we pass." The citizens are under pressure, and they have now created a remix to this song, because I hear them now singing, "Move, Rowley, move, let we pass."
So therein lies the first call. The first call is the opposition is basically asking for the Prime Minister, I believe, essentially to step down. We all know about the chance Rowley must go. One thing, though, that I do have to ask, obviously, the opposition would prefer to see Mrs. Prasad's predecessor replace Prime Minister Rowley. However, it was reported that Rodney Charles, I did not see it directly myself, so reported that he's calling for the Prime Minister to follow the example of Boris Johnson. Now, in that example, Boris Johnson did not call for a snap election. He stepped down, and the party had to choose a new leader internally. I want to ask, I don't expect a snap election to be called. Is the UNCO, does the opposition have someone on the other side that it would prefer to see in the post of Prime Minister?
What, from the PNM side?
Yes.
No, I mean, I think when we speak about Keith Rowley and the PNM, we're not only talking about him, but we're talking about every single minister, every single member of parliament that exists on the PNM side. Because I actually, it's a good question, because speaking to some of my colleagues yesterday, I posed the question: is there any one member of parliament today on the PNM side? Is there any one minister in the cabinet today that you could sit down and look at and say, wow, this person's done a fantastic job. This person has done the best that they can possibly do. They have really served the people. They have stood out as a bright light on the PNM side. And, and I even went so far as to say, look, even if you say that this PNM government is decayed from the head come right down, is there one person that even within this decay has stood out, even with the challenges of not being able to deliver because their wings have been clipped by some 4 or 5 power movers and shakers in the cabinet that make all the decisions? Is there one that at least stands out that you think can take this country forward? And we had crickets chirping in the room, because you really couldn't see any one person that stands out, that really you have that comfort of saying that, if Rowley decided one day, I done with this. The people seem to be disgruntled. I am pressured. I'll step down. I mean, let's remember, Boris Johnson was not only pressured by the citizens of United Kingdom, but he was also pressured within his own party. There were senior members of the party that literally resigned. There was literally an internal motion of confidence against Boris Johnson. He was pressured by his own party members to leave. We don't see this in the PNM because, of course, I don't think there's anyone with the testicular fortitude within the cabinet that would stand up and call for Rowley to step down at this point. And just that being said, that there's no one person that is prepared to stand up against this failed leader, in my opinion. There's no one person prepared to do that. Just basically, spells the tale of a weak cabinet and a weak, group of members of parliament. Half of whom we don't even remember their names because they've made no impact.
I know that there are a lot of members of the cabinet who I myself do forget because you hardly ever see them. as much to as opposed to what Minister Hines tried to say with regards to the government, but we'll get into that later. But I do now have to ask, obviously, of course, your supporters will agree with you, but are you hearing enough from, say, undecided voters or moderates, or even from voters from areas that are traditionally for the other party? Are you hearing enough with regards from the voting public that they will support, that they want to see change right now, and that the change would be united enough for us to actually get a different result?
Well, listen, if the country didn't see all the main representatives of trade unions move a motion of no confidence in this Rowley-led PNM government, where they handed a motion of no confidence in the Prime Minister and his cabinet to the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, to the President of the Senate, to the Speaker of the House, and to the opposition leader. I mean, that was on the front page of the nation's mainstream newspapers.
No,
that's just one example. And I mean, if you read the columns in the newspapers now, the United National Congress, we always, had concerns about the Fourth Estate, about the fairness of the media, and we've aired those concerns openly. And I can say to you is that, we are even seeing, even though we have that opinion, we are even seeing, and I'm not speaking about all journalists, but I'm saying that, it's something that some of us have said individually. We've said that we find the media to be somewhat unfair over the last 7 years. But we are even within the media, we are seeing a change now.
Well,
we are seeing where, yeah.
Let me interrupt you then and ask you straight up. I'm a bit confused. I'm wondering if you could clarify a couple of things. Is the United National Congress even united within the party or within their messaging? On July 6th, in the Daily newspaper, MP Rodney Charles said that as head of the National Security Council, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley in these times should remove Fitzgerald Hines, and he himself should take up the position of Minister of National Security on top of being Prime Minister. But then 5 days later, the same MP Rodney Charles has also said to Rowley, take a lesson out of the books of the United Kingdom, Sri Lanka. Remove yourself. So 1 minute you're saying, you be Minister of National Security. Next you're saying, remove yourself. Then you, Senator Leiter, saying, listen, we will write with our fingers come the next general election. So I get it. It is a campaign, but at the same time, the messaging is confusing because you're saying
you have to remember
a couple different things,
You have to remember, right? Constitutionally, an election is not due for probably another 3 years. Right? So I think what MP Charles was saying in his first statement about removing Fitzgerald Hines as Minister of National Security and he taking up the helm, right, is that the reality of the situation is we are stuck with this government for the next 3 years constitutionally. Right? No one can stand up, the opposition can't stand up and make a government call an election. So you can't force any government into election. They are there for 5 years constitutionally. So we know the reality is we're stuck with this government for the next 3 years. We can't take another month with this Minister of National Security. So I think in the first instance, MP Charles is calling for the Prime Minister to take immediate action to remove a failed Minister of National Security who now, this is his 5th run in the cabinet, where he has clearly failed once again for the 5th time in cabinet. And it's now, and he's sitting in one of the most critical ministries in the cabinet today, which is national security. And under his stewardship, we have seen the absolute collapse in national security. We've seen record numbers of murder. We've seen serious crime skyrocket and out of control. We've seen national security apparatus that's literally collapsed. But just to encapsulate the point and answer your question, so you don't think I'm spinning away, is that there's an immediate need for the Prime Minister to remove a minister who has failed outright in front of the entire nation who has failed at his job, and to you, the Prime Minister, if you are the Prime Minister and you are the one that is in charge of the cabinet, and you continue to sit on press conferences and buff up the people and tell the people that as Prime Minister of this country, I have to do this and that. Well, okay, as Prime Minister of this country, the biggest failure in the government is national security today. I mean, there are many other failures. The economy, the Ministry of Health. But right now, the entire country is uneasy with this runaway crime problem. So the first thing that Rodney Charles is saying is, Prime Minister, remove your failed minister. You are the Prime Minister. Take charge. You are the head of the National Security Council. Take charge. If you say that you are this great Prime Minister and you have all this duty, then take the duty of managing the biggest crisis we have in this country today, and let us see you. So that's on the one hand. 5 days later, you say that Rodney Charles speaks about looking at Sri Lanka and looking at the United Kingdom. That's a whole different topic. That speaks to the overall now failure of this government, led by the Prime Minister Keith Christopher Rowley, that has collapsed almost every delivering ministry, that has collapsed the economy of this country. So that speaks to an overall failure by this government, knowing that there's 3 years until there is constitutionally we can have an election. We're saying now the country is desperate. Unlike Sri Lanka, where we saw what happened in Sri Lanka, where the people rose up and demanded the removal of leadership in Sri Lanka, and where we saw that not only the many of the citizens of the United Kingdom, but Boris Johnson's own party members rise up and say, well, we need this Prime Minister to go. Well, Rodney Charles is signaling that we're seeing the situation here, the same situation here.
Senator Lionel, so on the topic of MP Charles' statements, I do have a clip because Minister Hines did respond. It seems as though I think he had an entire press conference just to respond to some of the criticisms pointed towards the Prime Minister out of the opening of the St. Clair Police Station and the Prime Minister's comments then. So we'll get into that, but I want you to see this clip first so that you could respond to some of the things Minister Hines has to say.
For which the adults who had the responsibility of nurturing and bringing up this youngster would have been significant. Nothing to quarrel about in that. Everybody know that. But not so with Rodney Charles. He jumps out Sunday morning using the media and tells the country that the Prime Minister attacked parents, attacked single mothers. I had to listen. I was present in the front row as Minister of National Security when the learned and experienced as a parent Prime Minister spoke. I heard nothing about single mother, yet the member for Naparima had the temerity, the gumption, the gall to come in front of us as a nation and absolutely told a lie. Because when they talk, they have the habit of talking now in their press conferences in a bubble somewhere, from a bar somewhere where you can't reach them. But we are very accessible. This is the umpteenth time that I have asked you to come here and sit manfully and answer every question that you provide. And the Prime Minister does it regularly. Up to last Thursday in the post-cabinet meeting, he interfaced with you on behalf of the people, being the most accessible Prime Minister, the most transparent of all that we could even remember in recent times. Even the member for Siparia, well, she's in a triple bubble. She's in a world by herself, cloud 9. And their chicks or their babies, but not Rodney Charles. He just scratch around for dirt sake. I listened to the man this morning. I listened to the Prime Minister just to see. Nothing about single mothers. But he criticizes the Prime Minister, who was telling young people as well, for God's sake, do not waste your time. Use your days, use your hours sensibly.
So, Senator Leida, of course, now I will just say this. Technically, yes, the Prime Minister did not single out single mothers. So it is somewhat fair for the Minister to say that. I do, however, find that his calling the government the most transparent and saying that he himself made himself available for the umpteenth time is similarly incorrect. Now, yes, there might be certain types of accessibility problems with the opposition. I will also agree with what he said there. But I will say this, the opposition members generally tend to be more available than cabinet ministers or senior people of the government's party. So with that said, I want to ask you to respond now to what Minister Hinds had to say, because he said a lot of things, as we could all imagine. But with just that specifically.
Sean, I have to gather my thoughts after, having an absolute laugh looking at that clip. Every time I listen to the Member of Parliament for Laventille West and every time, and the Minister of National Security, I have to laugh because it's unbelievable the utterances that come out of his mouth. But let me attempt and if things weren't so serious in this country, I would really have to continue laughing. But you see, it's not a joke anymore in this country. So I will respond to what he has said there. First of all, he talked about the transparency. He spoke about the transparency of the Prime Minister. This is the same Prime Minister that had gone missing recently in the United States of America for almost a month. While we had floods in this country, while we had riots in this country, while the country is sinking, this is the same Prime Minister that we heard nothing about for almost a month, other than a Facebook post when questions started to arise in the general public, firstly from the opposition, and then from just the rank and file citizen in this country. Then we saw eventually, almost 4 weeks later, a post coming out on Facebook from the Prime Minister's office that he'll return on a particular date, which he I don't think he even returned on that date. So, and the country knew nothing about what was going on with the Prime Minister. All we heard was he went to the summit. He had some medical issues, and we heard nothing for weeks later about the Prime Minister. That's just one example of a multitude of examples I can cite of a Prime Minister who is very far from being transparent or from being available to the media on certain major issues, right? Like, for example, the collapse of the Police Service Commission. How long did it take before the Prime Minister came out to the public, and then literally stated in certain words that he might have been that high official that was present in the president's house? How many weeks and months went by when we saw the removal of our sitting commissioner of police, when we saw the country plunge into a constitutional crisis, when we saw no acting or substantive police commissioner at the helm, after we saw that total fiasco and debacle? How long until the Prime Minister actually came out and said anything about that? So I wouldn't even waste my time speaking about transparency coming from the Prime Minister or any of his cabinet members.
Senator,
right?
Whilst we have 2 minutes left, let me ask you, if this is the case then, as much as we're talking about we have to remove Hinds and we have to remove Rowley and we have to put Kamla back as leader, because it seems as though we're still living between 2010 and 2015. I still have not heard any alternatives from the UNC in terms of crime-fighting plans or national security measures. So I'm just wondering if I will feel safe if there was a change in government, because the UNC hasn't produced any alternatives to me, even though they've spoken on the Monday Night Forum.
Well, actually, that's not entirely true, because if you look at let's look at our manifesto. It's stated within our manifesto some of the plans. In fact, the plan, so many of the plans have been stated by Kamala Persad-Bissessar that the Prime Minister himself even made a mockery of the opposition leader when she spoke about a security dome. And this security dome, which by the way exists in Israel, and also exists even as close as Anguilla in the Caribbean. And of course, I don't have the time to speak about the security dome because you said, I have only a couple of minutes. But the security dome is basically a plan of national security on the land, air, and sea. And that is what you talk about the security dome. The Prime Minister makes light of it and a joke of it, stating that we have to get dome builders and dome mechanics and dome engineers. But of course, he's just playing politics on serious issues like national security. But just to finish the question asked by Sean, when you talk about the accessibility of the opposition to the media, let me remind you guys here, and I know you all are very anchor on what's happening in the media. But the United National Congress has a Monday night forum where media can ask questions if they so desire. They have a TT Speaks every single week. There are media conferences. There are press conferences every Sunday. Every single Sunday.
I apologize. I have to cut you. You have to forgive us for that, just simply because of time. But thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning. I know that you've made yourself available to us, so we can continue this conversation at a later date.
Yes, no problem.
Thank you very much, sir. Take care.
Okay, take care.
Ladies and gentlemen, on the program now here on WESN, we break for news on the hour, and when we return, the phone lines will be opened this morning. Stay tuned to the program.
Seven is out. All day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this is a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law, and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Psyched. Thursdays at 11 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WESN, the Content Capital. Once more, we thank Sule A. Joseph, resident psychologist here at WESN, for joining us. And, of course, we thank Senator Damian Leiter for making himself available to us this morning. Serious topics, serious conversations, of which we will not shy away from. I continue to say that. But everybody has an opinion, and we want to hear yours this morning. So the phone lines are open. You can call in and join us. And we do have a question of the day, actually. The question is, should Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley head the Ministry of National Security? In these times, it is a question that you may be asking yourself very seriously. When we and it's nothing new in terms of a Prime Minister taking certain positions or leaders taking certain positions. The head of the THA, Vale Augustine, is also Secretary for Finance and the Economy. In Grenada, we see the Prime Minister also being the Minister of Finance.
We also saw, at least at one point, I think his last term, or maybe the term before that, the second to last term, Prime Minister Manning was also, I believe, at least one of the terms, served as the Minister of Finance, if I'm not correct.
So it's nothing new, a Prime Minister holding or heading a ministry. So that is the question we're asking. We'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. So if there's anything else that you'd like to talk about or share with us this morning, we're always open to hearing that on the program.
Now, speaking of Senator Leiter off air, because we ran out of time, so there were some questions which I think the audience might have hoped that we asked. One of which we actually also ran out of time, and that is with regards to the media accessibility of the opposition leader. I think this is where PNM supporters might want to complain. Some of the complaints are valid. At the end of the day, though, ultimately speaking, this is something where, yes, we could go tit for tat. I would advise that the various parties seek to improve themselves as opposed to trying to attack the other side, and that works both ways.
Now, I didn't really get my response from the senator in relation to the measures put forward or the alternatives by the United National Congress in terms of a national security plan. So as much as they're posing and as much as they're stating all these things on their platform, to me it's obviously a political campaign, but I'm not saying that they're doing a terrible job. I'm just stating that their job will be more effective as an opposition if they were constructively critical and also giving us alternatives and options.
I think what the plan that Senator Leiter mentioned was an old plan. It was from comments made, over a year ago?
It was in the general election back in 2020.
Right. So, and that was also during the pandemic. I mean, the situation, of course, has evolved for better or worse. It's compounded by certain things. It's exacerbated by other things. So that's my only criticism. Yes, we got the policy, but even then, I wish that policies could be more detailed. The government is detailed by default when they finally reveal details on what they're implementing. But politicians generally are short on the details and long on the rhetoric.
We're also calling for the Prime Minister to leave, but in all fairness to Dr. Keith Rowley, I mean, he won the election. When was the last time Kamala Persaud-Bissessing in the UNC won the election? There have been calls for her to leave, and she hasn't departed that position as yet. So there's a lot of irony as well in them calling for Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley to leave. But anyway, we have a caller on the line with us from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, I just want to make a comment. As pertaining for the Prime Minister to become national security, I don't think that's a good idea. You just can't put somebody as a figurehead here and hope that they will do something good. You need somebody with experience and somebody who knows what they're doing. This present one, not so much. But I don't agree with that. They need to get somebody who is competent and who has a clear idea of the run of the country where security is concerned.
Yeah.
And as pertaining to the Minister of National Security, when he says that Rodney Charles says single parents, but he didn't have to say single parents. In fact, he said parents. So I want to know if single mothers and single fathers, and they're not parents. They are parents.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make a common sense comment, really. And that's why I think that he needs to really step aside and let somebody competent run that department. It needs to be done and done strictly if this country is to get back some sort of security and confidence in the security services. Thank you as usual for taking my call, and have a good day, you fine gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Keep well. All the best. You know, the Minister of National Security, again, he said we make ourselves available to the public. You know, second time I'm holding a press conference. First time you didn't want to hold a press conference. You really didn't have a choice. And you did the right thing by throwing a press conference. This one, you hold a press conference to go after an opposition member of parliament. You literally wasting our time. So I didn't hear from you addressing these serious issues that's impacting upon me. You know, you seem to forget that you are a minister. The campaign has ended. Enough talk about that. Again, as I started the conversation with Paula Gobi-Schoon, I say the same thing for Fitzgerald Hines. Boss, you're not fooling me. You have no plans in your head. Is that what it is?
I want to respond to both points, but I'll limit myself for now for the second part there to add to what you're just saying. Some of what Fitzgerald Hines said I found was very unnecessary and disappointing. And it was the silliest sort of political bashing. What was the point? You're not proving anything to me by stooping to this level. It wasn't necessarily too vulgar, although I did not listen to the whole press conference because it got tiring after a while, to be fair. But it just felt so unnecessary and unprofessional.
Well, anyway, we have a call on the line with us from Samoa. Good morning, caller.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Keaton and Sean.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Yes, on the issue of the Prime Minister holding a portfolio of national security, it did happen during the time that Mr. Manning was Prime Minister. Because when the two Caucasian women were raped and killed somewhere in the West, I don't know if you remember, I think Chuck Attenley was held for that, convicted for that crime.
Yeah.
But Mr. Manning didn't last long as Minister of National Security. He dropped the portfolio like a hot potato, and he replaced himself with Russell Huggins. But anyway, that is in a nutshell. But Sean and Keaton, I listened to the Senator Damian Lyder this morning, and sometimes these politicians, they never seem to amaze you, you know. I would have asked him if I had the time. You're criticizing the PNM on the one hand and saying they have no crime plan. The Minister of National Security, Fitzgerald Hines, he's at a loss as to how to go about fighting the crime. But if you throw your mind back, Keaton and Sean, the UNC, I would ask them, does the UNC have a crime plan? During the time of the UNC ruled this country for 5 years and 3 months because they overstayed their time by 3 months. They had 5 ministers of national security. They started off with Minister of National Security number 1, John Sandy.
Yes.
Then he was replaced by Jack Warner. Then from Jack Warner, they went to the former, who was the former Commissioner of Police, Gary Griffith.
Gary Griffith.
Then they had the DJ, Hurricane George.
Yes, I remember. I
can't remember his first name.
Even I think it's Nazim Baksh too was the Minister of National Security.
I don't think.
Yeah, let me double check that. But I believe he was also National Security Minister under that tenure as well.
No, go ahead, caller.
Sorry, Nizam Baksh. My apologies.
Yeah, no, Mr. Pandey. What Pandey he was?
Oh no, he was a minister in the ministry. Subhash Pandey?
He was Subhash
Different
Pandey.
one.
He was sort of a junior minister of national security.
No.
And when after Gary Griffith had said was George, and then the retired Brigadier Carl Alfonso. So you ask yourself, they changed 5 ministers of national security. The former Prime Minister Kamala Prasad Bisesa, she even paid the police. She gave the police $1,000 extra per month, tax-free, as an incentive to perform. But Keaton and Sean, when the police got that money, they didn't perform any better. As a matter of fact, their performance dropped lower than what it is. And the police took her money, and 95% of the police in this country is a common knowledge. They are supporters of the PNM, so they took the money. 95% of the police force, it is a PNM party group. They went and voted for the PNM. So I don't see the crime. Both parties seem to be at loss as to how to go about this crime. I could recommend, as an ordinary civilian, I could give you 10 points now how to solve crime. I could give you 2 quickly in a nutshell.
Very quickly.
Right. Every citizen 18 years and over who is on a public road, like in some countries like Venezuela, you must have some form of ID on your person. Failure to have that would be a serious consequence. And then the second point, you could zone the vehicles. So if a fella is from Westmoreland and you find him down in Barrackpore, you want to know his vehicle is registered for Westmoreland, what the hell he doing in Barrackpore? So this is just in a nutshell. But no, gentlemen, neither of the parties, the PNM or the UNC, seem to have a crime plan.
Well, caller, I have to cut your call there. I'm sorry, but thank you.
Sure. Thanks for your time.
Yes. You must forgive me for my little fault. It wasn't Nizam Baksh, actually. It was Emmanuel George, Hurricane George, as you're referring to. I don't know why I got so confused there, but forgive me. We have a call on the line with us from
Tobago.
From Tobago. Good morning, caller.
Hello.
Hi, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
You're live.
I heard this caller a while ago here. The last caller, they're talking about the crime. And the UNC doesn't have a crime plan. But I want to remind him that in the era of the UNC, the crime was down. I'm sure TNT knew that. It was the lowest that we had, the kind of crime that is taking place right now.
Fair point, caller.
So I just want him to know that.
All right. Thank you, caller. Only one thing, though. Statistically, even before 2010, there were years prior to the UNC being in power, when Patrick Manning was in power, that crime rates were lower. Crime has actually, climbed consistently over the years. What's your famous quote? The statistics?
There's lies, there's darn lies. You know what the darn is supposed to be. And then there's statistics. So, yeah, I would say, to the caller's point, the statistics, technically, if you read it at face value, don't necessarily support you. But I do think analyzing crime that way is not always telling the whole story. Yeah. Because right now, it's not as though, statistically speaking, crime has doubled.
Well, let's remind
you. But we feel, though. We feel that way.
We have callers on the line. The number's up on your screen. Call in and join us. But let's remind you of the question of the day. Should Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley lead? Should he head the Ministry of National Security? We have a caller on the line with us from Tunapuna. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. Calling from Tunapuna.
Good morning.
Yes, I want to address the situation with the Prime Minister holding the position of national security.
Sure.
It's not just about a Prime Minister. It's about competence of a Prime Minister or Minister holding the position of national security. Let me send you all back to a real Prime Minister who took over national security responsibility and brought down crime when he went there by more than 50%. Or I should say probably 100 if you all work out the figures properly. Mr. Bashir Pandey took over the national security position when he went into office and met murders of at 143. And the rest of the 5 years that he remained there, he bring down the murder rate to double digits.
Yes, caller, go on.
98, 93, 94, and so on. That was the only prime minister, and he gave his reason why he was so successful. And the reason that he gave why he was so successful was accountability on a regular basis. From all who the stakeholders for the Ministry of National Security is concerned. So this is a different hitter. Minister, Prime Minister, and competent, not anyone. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller. Bastio Pandey was the Minister of National Security from December of 2000 to January of 2002. 2 years he held that position.
I mean, it was even different back then compared to, say, around 2011 on when things started again. Because at that point in time, we were talking about, oh my gosh, we have 1 murder a day. And it was around the 300 mark. That was a lot back then. And then eventually it got to, hey, we're nearing 500. And now we've reached the point where we're considering 600. With regards to our previous caller from San Juan, he had some ideas that would be pretty strict and potentially quite authoritarian. So there is, the question with regards to his proposals is, would we be willing with harsher or stricter measures in order to clamp down on crime? I'm not too sure if Trimbigonians are ready for that. But we have another caller from someone?
Yeah, we do have a caller now with us. Good morning.
Yeah, Keaton and Sean, yeah, sorry to butt in again. Thanks for taking my call.
Okay.
I want to correct that caller from Tunapuna. I was just reminded by somebody to call back and tell that caller from Tunapuna that when Mr. Pandey took over the portfolio as Minister of National Security, and he, by the way, he was another Prime Minister who took over security, apart from Patrick Manning, as I said earlier. My friend was reminding me that the crime went up by 67% when Pandey took over as Minister of National Security. And the person who brought it down was the person who succeeded Pandey,
Howard Chinley,
retired Brigadier Joe Theodore. And the reason why, in closing, the reason why Mr. Pandey took that portfolio as National Security, I'll just say it in a nutshell. There were certain moves that Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj.
Very quickly, caller.
Yeah, that Pandey was afraid that Mr. Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj would have moved in on him and done certain things. And that is why Pandey took that portfolio.
All right.
Okay, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Caller, let me just correct you. Howard Chinley succeeded Bastio Pandey as the Minister of National Security.
Because there was the election?
Brigadier Joseph Theodore actually came before Bastio Pandey. Joseph Theodore was 1995 to 2000. Bastio Pandey was from 2000 to 2002. Howard Chinley succeeded.
One interesting thing I find whenever we hear talks about, well, usually in less stable nations, the Minister of National Security is a very powerful position. And the rumor mill would be like, well, so-and-so wants to be Minister of National Security to control the Defense Force apparatus, right? Either to protect themselves or to wield the power or whatever. When I hear things like this, I understand it's, let's not be naive and say that it's not possible, because it is possible, right? But I do wonder if we truly are at that point, if we have ever been at that point. Because right now, the irony of the situation is right now, from what I understand, and this could be completely wrong, so take this with a grain of salt. In the current administration, that portfolio is not desired. And I don't necessarily think there's a lot of actual political power to be exercised. Because in our society, we don't have corruption on that level where, you know, well, there's private violent squads, let me just put it that way, right? And strong arm tactics. I don't think we've reached it. I don't believe the Defense Force or the Coast Guard or the TTPS are willing to be used as a private army for anybody. I don't think that our national security apparatus has reached that point. I understand, though, that it has happened elsewhere, and we do need to not allow ourselves to reach that point. But right now, the irony is, I think, and what I think kind of disproves those theories somewhat, at least currently, I don't think that the post is desired by anybody in government, and that's why I speculate that Minister Hines is there because no one else wants the job. His predecessor wanted to leave that job. The Minister of Everything wanted to say, well, no, I'm everything except that. I don't want to be that.
You have just gone against your argument that you've made when the Minister of Energy and Energy Industry, Stuart Young, was given that portfolio. I remember on this program when that happened, I was questioning why is Stuart Young Minister of Energy? And you said because regardless of his qualification, it doesn't matter. We've seen it with other ministers before. And that was a very valuable point. But you also said there simply wasn't anybody else or they simply, they didn't trust each other to put anybody else in that position as energy at that time, following the passing of Franklin Kahn.
Both could be
now
true.
You're stating that because Stuart Young wanted to leave? Well, yeah, okay, fine. I
Stuart
suppose
Young
both
wanted to
could be
leave
true.
is not an original idea, right? To be fair. However, both could be true. It could be that, hey, you need me in energy more than national security.
It was just a door
let me get out. Yeah,
it's just a door opening for me.
Yeah, possibly. Because, again, why Hines? He does not inspire confidence, especially now where that's like 50% of the role. Just inspiring confidence in our national security apparatus with regards to how we perceive crime.
Anyway, we have time for one more call. We have a call on the line with us from Tobago. Last call for the morning. Good morning. Hello, good morning.
Juan. Good morning.
Hello.
Hi. Good morning.
You hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, this is the First People Military Army. This set a crime talk with the settlers nationals here. The way back in this thing. Remember when Pandey signed the ship rider business to bring back criminals from outside who was involved in criminal activities in gangs? The gang started there. When he left, the thing was flourishing after. So it are no blaming at this government and blaming at the national security and blaming this one and blaming at a handful of the police officers know who bringing in the containers with the AR-15. They're getting money from it. Customs, same thing.
Good point, caller.
But we dig in deep inside to find out we just want one of the container importers. We know the areas, but we can't get the gang men and them to tell us who is the boss with the money. They're afraid because some of them running 3 gangs in different areas. When one foul up, they send the other one to knock out one and put a new fella in place and send him Shogunas to get a license with money.
Yeah.
We indigenous people, the settlers here have to buck up on themselves, give the police the information.
Yeah.
Give them the information on the custom people, give them the information on whoever it is, the Fazal Razak. Don't get me wrong, there is where the guns coming in from, the big shots there.
All right, caller, thank you very much.
You all have a nice day.
You too.
You too.
And stay tuned.
Well, first of all, let me just put it out there. You see, vigilante justice or anything associated with guerrilla warfare, guerrilla justice, or whatever it is, we don't condone that at all on this program. However, the point that the caller made, which I do agree with, is in relation to the fact that, yes, we are focusing on the Ministry of National Security, but the arms under the Ministry of National Security, such as the police service, which is supposed to be independent, by the way.
Yes.
We have to focus on that as well. However, the individual who's supposed to be advising on policies and implementing policies and measures.
Who's a former police officer and attorney at law.
He's an attorney at law. I don't really think we have much confidence in him. I mean, listen, put it this way. If the Potongs are trying to leave Trinidad and Tobago and they're trying to catch a flight at the Piarco International Airport, you heard about that, by the way?
I mean, I found that was very unfortunate.
Potongs shut down the Piarco International Airport. No, because once you shut down the runway, you shut down the entire airport.
Yeah, the airport is shut. I just like to point out, in this country, other countries, what are their problems? Coups and assassinations, and they've run out of money, the government is bankrupt. What are our problems? Well, it takes one pothole to cause gridlock all over St. James Woodbrook. It takes a little bit of rain, and a lack of preparedness to flood out areas that were prepared a couple of weeks ago but somehow are not prepared anymore. It takes 2 patongs to shut down our airport. Not a bomb scare, not a crazy man doing something for it. Just 2 dogs.
No.
How did they even reach on the runway?
Just be grateful that it was 2 patongs and not a bomb scare. You see, a very good point that you made. How did they reach on the runway? Because if I'm not mistaken, FAA regulations state that after every flight and before each flight, it's supposed to land or take off. And after a flight lands or takes off, you have to inspect the runway and the surroundings around the runway. A simple thing. I think they call it FOD, if I'm not mistaken.
But there are measures to deal with birds, wild birds coming in.
Exactly.
Much less dogs.
Birds and plastic bags. You're not supposed to have plastic bags or a piece of clothing at all.
This is why airport security is so strict, by the way, folks. Just quick, with regards to our first caller from someone, he also said a subject matter expert. I have gone on record to say that for national security might not even want someone who is from the field because he's supposed to be a civilian leader. But the stage that we're at now, perhaps there's some merit to say, well, no. Whereas before you might want civilian leadership for oversight, perhaps now we need to kick into high gear and get a technical expert in the field because...
We had Brigadier Carl Alfonso, we had Brigadier Theodore Joseph, we had Brigadier John Sandy.
I don't know if army expertise is what's needed though, because it's a crime problem, it's not a defense problem.
Fair point, Sean. By the way, just to let you know, Costa Rica has now disbanded its army. Said the money, we don't use our army, the money could go elsewhere. I'm wondering, I'm just thinking. So it's another topic to get into, by the way.
That's the thing, to some extent, maybe the Defense Force needs to downsize. It is, however, useful for disaster response. And they have, I'm pretty sure, the 3rd Battalion, Support Battalion, we've gotten a fair amount of usage from them. So let's not just discredit the regiment completely.
Which we're not going to. But anyway, folks, that's it for Talking Point this morning. And that has been Mr. Sean Michael Small. I'm Keaton Shaw. Remember, as ironic as it may sound, today is a good day to have a good day. We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.